Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm Brittany Pacheco.
I'm Magneto.
I'm Marcy Gonzalez.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss episode 9 of X-Men 97. We're here to talk about Tolerance is Extinction Part 2. That's right. We're the second part of the 3-part finale. I think this episode could have been called X-Men Civil War after what happens. So I want to go around the horn, get everybody's thoughts, but I want to ask y'all a question. Are you Team Xavier or Team Magneto? Marcy, start us off. And also give us your thoughts on the episode as a whole.
Episode was great. It was very action-packed. You sometimes forget that you're watching an animated show, and this could easily have been made live action, and it still would have been interesting and amazing. Obviously, I'm Team Big Daddy Magneto, so don't even have to ask me.
Okay. Brittany, same question for you. Team Xavier or Team Magneto?
I'm honestly torn. I'm torn because the fact that, for so long, the X-Men have been trying to fulfill Professor X's vision and keep the peace and, do all that. But then, he kind of sort of didn't die and he left them. And then they're left to fend for themselves with Magneto as the leader, not Cyclops, who rightfully felt salty about that. And we'll get to that a little bit later. And then Magneto also tried to fulfill Charles' vision and what have you. Then that really backfired, and he's like, you know what? Enough. So I see the points on both sides. I make a persuasive argument for one or the other, and if I'm convinced, yeah, I'll join your side. So, but I will say I'll give points to Magneto for going back to the original suit that he wears. So. That was big. That was a big win for me. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm Switzerland at this point, maybe. Maybe not. But overall, love the episode. I was kind of just sitting here with my hands upside my head, like what is happening, especially in the last 10 minutes of the show. So mind blown. I felt like my body was being ripped apart, and rightfully so. And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Frank, my friend, Black Magic. What are your thoughts on this episode? And are you Team Charles or are you Team Magnus?
I think they're both very extreme in their thought process. Speaking of Magnus and Charles, if I had to pick, I would say Team Charles. From the simple fact, I'm just not cool with killing innocent people. Like, I get it. Look, if I was Magneto, I would be pissed off at the world too. I mean, concentration camps, seeing his family get murdered, being hunted for being a mutant. I get it, but when you start when that hate for the very thing that you hate that you want to destroy affects innocent people, I can't ride with that. I just and Bill DeMaio said it in one of his chat rooms, like when he weakened the electromagnetic field around Earth, millions of people died. Like millions, not thousands, millions. So when I read, because I remember reading that comic book too, and same thing in the Fed Attraction storyline. It was called the Magneto Protocols. It was pretty much the same premise of the protocols that Batman had for the Justice League if they went rogue. It was the same thing for Magneto if Magneto went crazy, that the government concoct this plan to try to nullify his powers on Earth, which failed miserably. But yeah, when I went back and read that comic, and the carnage that he left behind, I just can't ride with. Now, can Charles be a little bit of a utopian thinker? Yeah, he can, but he means well, and he cares for the safety of everyone, mutant and human alike. And I know it can be frustrating at times, man, but I got Robert Xavier for that. As far as the episode, man, it was emotional, man. Stop walking. Sit. As far as
That's what Magnus said to Charles. Stop walking.
Oh God.
I mean, he said 2 other words to him, but he started with "stop walking," and it so happened. Sorry.
Yeah, but like no, as far as the episode itself, it was very emotional because I remember crying when I read the comic books as a kid, and like they're pretty much combining two comic books, the Tolerance is Extinction comic book, Bastion in the late '90s, and the Fatal Attraction comic book in the early '90s. Um, Truth be told, the biggest thing that happened in that comic book was when Wolverine gets and Antimonium ripped out of him. But I loved the episode. It was very emotional. It was very high octane. And it leaves a lot of Easter eggs in the episode that's going to happen in the finale and going to next season. So I thought again, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but 10 out of 10 for me. So
Yeah, no, another great episode. For the record, if I'm a human in this world, I'm going to be Team Xavier. But if I'm a mutant, I'm Team Magneto because he's right. Like,
Not
you know,
surprised.
giving them a chance, and it's. I mean, if you could be a god and rule over those people, like that's what I would do. Like hands down, easy decision. As far as the episode is great. I'm just gonna be real. Come on.
We're hearing the origin story of your villainry. Like it's here it is.
Trust me. I've always said this. If I had superpowers, it wouldn't be a secret. It would not be a secret. People would know. People would definitely know. I wouldn't have a secret identity. None of that stuff. No, I'd be out in the open. I wouldn't be popular, but I would be effective.
And when we get to 500 subscribers, you will reveal to us your superpowers.
Yes.
That'd be nice. That would be awesome. But one thing about this episode, I thought this was a great cliffhanger ending. Now, unlike Frank, I didn't read the comic book. So when I saw the ending of this episode where Magneto is literally ripping the adamantium out of Wolverine, I'm thinking, is Wolverine dead? Like, is that what we're getting in episode 10 in the finale? Frank, what I mean, obviously you didn't think
What's
he was
happening?
dead. Yeah, like what's happening? What's going on with this ending?
well, I don't want to get any well, I won't say what happened in the comic books, but I will say in theory, Wolverine is really fucked up, but his healing factor should save him. Yeah, it pretty much went down the same way. They're trying to take off Magneto's helmet, and Wolverine, who was the stubborn ox, man. Like, bro, you are literally your your very power is Magneto's ability to manipulate and destroy you with your said power, which is the antimantium metal that he has. Um, it was I remember I was in third grade, man. It was a rainy day in April. I was grounded and I had my comic books, and I just got this comic book, Fatal Attraction. And when I read that last page, I had to wait a month for that other issue to come out. So people don't understand the stress that went on in '93, not knowing if Wolverine was going to survive or not. We had to go a whole fucking month before Chris Claremont and company came out with the next issue. But in theory, he's fucked up, but he should be fine with his healing factor. But he's fucked up. That's never happened. Like, make this clear. This is the first time that the antimantium has been ripped out of his body or put in since the Weapon S program in the '60s. So this has been a good 50 year or 40 years since then. Or was '97, so probably like 40 years since he's had any type of extraction or implementation of an antimantium to his bones. But without saying too much, he should be fine. But you never know where the show's gonna go. I mean, and another fact, this is the first time we've seen Wolverine's claws impale a human or impale human mutant flesh or human flesh of all kinds.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a lot of times when we saw Wolverine impale his claws, it was in a machine, a sentinel, something that wasn't human or mutant. So seeing that told me that, oh, this is a damn near NC-16. Like, this is some real shit. Like, motherfuckers getting impaled now. We're seeing blood. What the fuck's going on? But I don't know if I answered your question now. I'm just rambling now.
No, I think you did.
Okay, all right.
No, but as far as the ending, it was a great twist. And Marcy, I want to get your thoughts on that because, as Frank mentioned, you see the claws go through Magneto. You see Magneto's eyes are wide, and you're thinking, is he going to die here? And then literally seconds later, Magneto turns the table and he's, ripping the metal out of Wolverine. What's kind of going through your head as you're watching the final seconds of this episode?
Lots of things. Like you said, you see that and you're like, okay, does that mean he killed Magneto? This can't be. We still have one more episode. What is going to happen? And then again, when we see that it's Wolverine just kind of now at the mercy of Magneto and things do not look good for him, I was like, okay, Magneto, you're going too far. Like, wait, like you're not. I understand your point, but then also, like, why are you killing mutants that you were supposed to lead? You were supposed to lead the X-Men. So lots of mixed emotions. Obviously, like it's cool to watch, as in the animations, but lots of feelings if you've gotten kind of attached to these characters, whether it was Magneto and you thought he was going to die or Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean, and Brittany, I want to get your thoughts also. Like, what were you thinking when you saw the end of that episode?
Like I said, at that point, I had my hands upside my head, and I'm just like in pure disbelief as to the events that are happening right in front of us. The fact that Wolverine goes and, like Frank says, uses his claws to, punch through, not punch through, but like stab Magneto, and you're seeing and hearing Magneto kind of like gag, and like that typical sort of, oh God, like I'm about to die kind of thing. And he says like this really great line about how been in a lot of fights or a lot of battles, bub, and the brave die first or the good die first or something along those lines. And Magneto just like puts a spin on him and is basically like, yeah, you don't get the last say in this. Like I have the last say in this. And when he completely just overtook Wolverine to the point where you're seeing the adamantium like just be stripped from his body, and you see like the flesh just kind of like in shards almost, like, oh my God, that was so intense. I've never seen anything like that, let alone in an animation. It was just like, but this is what makes Wolverine Wolverine. Obviously the adamantium, yes, he's got healing powers and what have you, but like what is Wolverine without his claws? What is Wolverine without his adamantium? And that question hopefully will be answered come next episode. I was in pure disbelief. The very fact, of course, that Magneto got bested to a degree, and then he turned it around on Wolverine, all while Magneto is like keeping Charles in like this hold, has the helmet on him so he can't use his telepathy and telekinesis and all that stuff. And everyone is forced to watch what's unfolding. Like that's what's so freaking crazy about it, is everyone's forced to watch this. Those who pick sides, it doesn't matter at this point. They're forced to watch these two like just hash it out with one another, and it looks grave for one, and then it might be more so for the other, it seems, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. But yeah, that scene was nuts.
I'm really interested to see how the episode 10, how it picks up from episode 9. And Brittany, you mentioned about the adamantium is gone from Wolverine, which, maybe it means, no metal claws, but is he totally declawed, Frank? Are we going to see other kinds of claws maybe?
He's not declawed. Logan's James Howlett's original body structure and power was his healing factor, and he always had the bone claws. What makes it interesting for Wolverine that due to the infusion of the adamantium to his skeleton during the Weapon X program, his memory of his upbringing, everything was wiped away. So in the comic books, when his adamantium is ripped off his body, he sees the bone claws for the first time. He's like, "Oh shit, I have bone claws!" Like he has no recollection of what happened prior to the Weapon X program. I don't know if you remember, even the X-Men movies and the comics, Charles Xavier and Jean Grey are working with him, on a weekly basis, trying to regain the fragments of his memory and try to place them back together, because that surgery or that procedure pretty much scrambled his brain. So No, he's still Wolverine, just without the adamantium. He's not, and he's 400 pounds lighter because the adamantium was so heavy on his bones, and so like he's pretty much back to where he was prior to the Weapon X program. Bone claws intact, healing factor intact as well.
400 pounds lighter. That's crazy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what
Cedric,
I'm envisioning in my head, Wolverine kind of jumps from place to place at times and just like he's just gonna launch. Like when he's gonna jump, he's just gonna go. Like there's nothing weighing him down. He's just gonna go whee. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. And something that happens in the comic books too, like I don't know if I'm sure you guys have been reading, and so this launches an entity called Onslaught. Now, I don't know if this happens on in the cartoon series in this adaptation, but pretty much in the comic books, when Magneto pretty much just does that to Wolverine, Charles, this is probably the maddest you ever seen Charles. Charles goes mad and like because essentially these are his children, you know what I'm saying? So like seeing like one of his students, his one of his family members, his child get ripped apart like that, he lobotomizes Magneto in the comic books, and that trauma of him lobotomizing Magneto, the trauma of him seeing Wolverine like that, the trauma of Charles doing that to one of his oldest friends on the planet, it created this psychic entity between that fused Charles's despair with Magneto's hate, and it created an entity called Onslaught, which is a Magneto Charles entity, fused entity that pretty much is arrived on Charles's despair and Magneto's hate. So I don't know if we're gonna go that route in the finale. I don't know that it's gonna come around season two, but that's where it happens in the comic book. After Wolverine gets his metal taken out of his body.
Yeah, I've kind of heard and read some stuff similar to that. So it sounds like you're pointing us in the right direction there. Um, let's just go back to the kind of the beginning of the episode. One thing I was kind of surprised by was, the end of episode 8, we see Xavier return to the X Mansion, and we start off this episode with Xavier talking to Cyclops, and Storm also returns, and I was kind of surprised that now, granted, it's not a great time for the X Men right now, but they didn't get a hero's welcome at all. Jean was super psyched to see Storm, but everybody else, it was kind of like, even with the professor, they're just like, yeah, whatever. Like, this is a terrible world we're living in, and glad you're back, but I don't know. What did y'all think about that, Marcy? What did you think about the lack of I don't know, there doesn't seem a whole lot of excitement from the X-Men to have their leader or their father back.
Yeah, very understandable. Again, like you said, there's a lot of things that have happened ever since Charles supposedly died, or they thought Charles died, and even a lot happened, between the time Storm has been gone. So, yeah, they're probably relieved that Charles is not dead and that Storm is back and she has her powers. But again, it's like, where have you been? Lots of crazy shit has happened. We've lost mutants and friends that we care about. Gambit is gone. There's really nothing to celebrate. So I kind of understand. And I think that plays more into Charles's guilt, because that was a big theme of the episode last week. Was he was just like, I'm just really guilty, and trying to explain why he made certain decisions. And even in this episode, just kind of saying like, I had to put Magneto in charge because I didn't want Cyclops and Jean to have to stay here when they could be off living their lives. So I understand why there's not that excitement. And I think like I said, it plays into just Charles's despair, and even a little to Storm, because she's like, I wasn't here for this. Yeah, I was going through my own troubles, and luckily I got my powers back, but it's a lot to handle, just knowing that a lot went down while you were gone and you couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, a lot has happened since they both left. And Brittany, for example, with Storm, Jean was happy to see her, but the last time Storm saw Jean, it wasn't actually Jean, it was Madeline. Do you think she knows that there was a Madeline? Like, it just
No.
no.
No, I mean, Storm's been MIA for quite some time.
Mm.
Jean obviously hasn't had the time to unload and tell her of all the things that have happened right? It's they don't have the time for it. In 12 hours time, the world as they know it is going to end, you know, because of the events of Bastion and Magneto. So they've got other pressing matters to attend to, but I agree with the lack of a hero's welcome is kind of just unfortunate, because I'm sure the question also on everyone's mind to Storm is how did you grow your hair back so quickly? I mean, it's beautiful, it's luscious, it's like just and this outfit, like, my God, who's your tailor? Like, it's fantastic. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer. I was grateful to see that she and Forge came into action to save Jubilee, and Roberto, I guess, he was there with her. Also, fuck that guy to a degree, but we'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little unfortunate to see Storm not have like this kind of grandiose sort of welcome back. You know, we're so happy that, you know, you're here. And also, how the hell did you get your powers back? So yeah, they don't have time to go through the details and swap stories about what's happened in my life since you've been gone. So it's a little unfortunate.
Yeah. Frank, thoughts on Storm and Xavier's return and lack of like a parade or anything? Everyone's just kind of, you're back and let's get to it, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, kind of hard on what Marcy said. I mean, it's kind of hard to have a parade when, you know, one of your dear X-Men are dead and millions of people are now perished from the planet, and you know, it's there's more pressing matters right now, and there's 12 hours to pretty much extinction. So, and then also too, like, we saw you on TV, bro. You was about to get married out of space. We thought you was in a fucking coma. You over here gallivanting around Uranus and shit. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'll be
For
kind of
the
pissed off
Empire,
too.
Frank. For the
I,
Empire.
I'll be kind of pissed too. Like, and then don't let the X-Men find out that this motherfucker Xavier contemplated losing his memory to be with this Shi'ar bitch. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'll be pissed off too, cuz.
And
So
he had that
nah.
little suit where he could walk.
He over there walking with 2 feet and shit, skipping around and all that bullshit. Like, that, I'll be pissed off too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's valid. That's valid. And I think with Scott, you know, having to have a moment with Xavier to kind of hash it out, and Jean just kind of playing moderator, like, all right, you two, like, you know, sort it out. We've got bigger fish to fry. And Scott's like, really? How could you choose Magneto over me? Like, how could you? And it's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm glad it's not like a warm welcome. We're so happy you're back. Like, you have to address the elephant in the room. And it's kind of a big issue, obviously. Magneto has gone rogue. I called it early on when we first started this pod review on X-Men 97. There was no way in hell that I was about to spit out a name that I wasn't trying to say. There was no way in hell that Magneto wasn't going to, turn back to his usual self. And, you know, yay, I'm glad I got that right. But yeah, I'm actually very glad that Charles' return was sort of like not all sunshine and rainbows and hugs, and it's like you've got some explaining to do. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then whenever Magneto and Charles are you know, whenever they have their little reunion, it comes with Magneto descending down with his asteroid above the battered X mansion. And right here, the battle lines are drawn. It's time to pick teams, and Magneto lets all the X-Men know, like, you can join up with me, and we're gonna take care of this. Frank, I want to get your thoughts, because we see Rogue join Magneto, and we see Sunspot join Magneto. Do you think? I mean, obviously, there's only 2 of them that join him, but like, do you think others were on the fence and maybe were like thinking like, hey, maybe I should jump to his side too, or you think like, was it who you expected? Obviously, Rogue seemed like an easy choice to join him, but I don't know. Sunspot didn't. That kind of caught me off guard.
Actually, it didn't for me, because Sunspot's so new and he has no allegiance to Charles. He doesn't even know Charles. Like, he knows him through hearsay. And we have to remember, he was just given away by his mother to the Prime Sentinels. So it's like his allegiance to good mutant kind is not really He's not really on the up and up right now. So nah, I'm not surprised at all on Sunspot's decision. And I thought Scott. I didn't think Scott would like fight on Magneto's side, but I thought Scott would have left. That's why I had kind of called last week. But no, I mean all the other X-Men, they've been there so long. Even with Rogue, like Rogue is not original X-Men like Jean and Archangel and Beast and Cyclops. So I mean, she is an X-Man, but like I think the longevity and like the connection those main four that I mentioned have with Xavier, it's just too deep. Like even with Scott, like as frustrated as he is with Charles, he said himself, like, yeah, I mean, we could have let Bo. I would have been right back here, Gene and I, because this is who I am. If Bastion, Mr. Sinister, that's just who they are. I think they're so deep into this Charles's dream of trying to find balance with humanity and mutant kind and being respected, that they know nothing else. I mean, people forget Jean, Beast, Scott, they were teenagers when they joined. This is like 20 years in the making, you know what I'm saying? So no, I would have been shocked if Jean or Beast or Wolverine left. Like Wolverine hates Magneto. So like that would never, like if he could kill him, he would have killed him years ago. Like and Nightcrawler is too much of a pacifist to like want to even join that side of bloodshed and genocide of humans. So no, I wasn't surprised by of the two people leaving.
Mhm. Marcia, let me get your thoughts on Rogue joining Magneto. She had a couple of great lines about her decision, and I'll read them now because Storm says, "You do not turn your back on family," and Rogue's like, "You were gone, gal. None of you were in Genosha when the day it fell." And she said, "Who dies next, Professor? Is it Jean?" She's like, "Been there, done that. Who even knows where Bishop is? And hell, Morph was barely on the team 30 minutes before we tossed them to the wolves. I will not see any more mutants die." I mean, when you hear Rogue say that, like, she's making a lot of points. Like, I mean, stop her when she's telling lies, and no one's trying to stop her. So, what do you think about her decision to join up with Magneto?
It was very on point. That wasn't shocking. She would be the one to pick if I was like, who's going to join Magneto instead of being with Charles. Definitely, not only because of the history and backstory that they seem to share, that they've shared throughout this show, but she's still heartbroken over losing Gambit. Like, you can definitely tell. So I think that just really radicalized her to the point where she's like, okay, I've already thrown Bolivar Trask off this building. Everything has still gone to shit. Magneto was right. Um, so I definitely understand her decision, and I think that was the right choice for her because she's just so hurt. Sunspot, I wasn't expecting, but it's like, go you. Like, that's the first brave thing we've seen you do throughout like this whole show. But definitely she was spot on with just kind of everything that she said. And like you said, nobody stopped her because everything she said was correct.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just thought like it was really powerful. And as Rogue is switching sides, she's in her like classic, like all green costume, which I want to transition to how all the X-Men are wearing their classic stuff. They go to their former base, which is Mirror Island, and there they form the blue team and the gold team. Scott's leading the blue team. Jean and Storm are leading the gold team, which I thought that was really cool how they kind of broke it up like that. And then they get their
Straight
classic
from the
uniforms.
comics.
Yeah. Brittany, I want to get your thoughts first. And of course, Frank, I want to talk to you about the classic costumes because you know more about it than anybody does. But Brittany, what did you think about them, like the kind of the suiting up moment and seeing these, I think they're like from the 80s, a lot of those costumes, like the Wolverine in the yellow and the brown. Like I think that's like a 1980s kind of look before he transitioned to the blue and yellow stuff that we saw in the 90s and of course in this animated series. You're muted.
Yeah, you think after, so many years of doing this, I would be a pro? I'm not. So, with the costume of blue and yellow for Wolverine, very iconic. Of course, that's how I associate who Wolverine is. But to see these older versions of their costumes that are truer to, I guess, the comics, like Frank was saying, that was kind of refreshing. I think the idea that the writers have decided to do a lot of callbacks to things that maybe the average, TV watcher such as myself and not dedicated comic book reader like Frank, they're drawing attention to it and making it known that, hey, like there's more to these characters than just what you've seen on TV, back in the 90s. So I think that was really cool. Jean's costume in particular gave me Poison Ivy vibes, which I didn't hate. Obviously I was just getting a little confused because now the hair is down. She's got like the eye mask and she's wearing the green as well. And it's just giving me total like Poison Ivy mask. And I'm like, where's Uma Thurman? But anyway, yeah, it was cool. It was definitely different to see this. Of course, even with Charles in the mansion the day after, he crash landed, he has to use a regular wheelchair because his very iconic yellow, what do you call it? Good Lord, his hover chair, if you will.
Right.
He, it's wrecked, and you're kind of seeing like the evolution of him, starting all over again and that kind of thing. So I think that's kind of cool to see as well. But very nice touch of adding the vintage costumes, if you will, separating the blue team from the gold team. To me, it's just kind of almost like a nod to Wolverine's costume as well, even though it's yellow, not gold. But I thought it was very funny how Scott wanted Wolverine to go on the team that's going to go fight Magneto, and Scott probably had ulterior motives for that.
Well,
Probably not.
I think as Frank said before, like Wolverine is down to kill Magneto. I mean, even in this episode, there's a couple of times before kind of foreshadowing how he's ready to go.
Oh yeah.
He's at one point he's like, "Oh, no more blather, and we can just go ahead and fight." And Rogue actually stops Wolverine at one point in the battle. So yeah, Wolverine's all about trying to kill Magneto.
Oh, I know. Just what I was referring to is the moment that real Jean kissed Wolverine, and Scott's like, nah. He goes, I need to get rid of this guy. So he says, you go with Magneto's people.
Yeah, and also the fact that Magneto could strip the adamantium from
Exactly.
Wolverine also. Frank, I want to get your thoughts on the classic costumes, even including Cyclops going with the full like blue like cowl, or I don't know what to even call that, like a onesie with the with the mouth open. What'd you think about
bald cap?
Yeah, they're the ball cap. What'd you think about the classic suits?
I just thought it was so cool for the writers to like implement that, because you never saw that in OG series of them, like
Yeah.
even an episode like them going retro to the old suits, like when they went to Mirror Island to that alternate base, and you saw all of those suits in the casings, and then like you saw, I don't know if y'all could notice, but there was a motorcycle like on the ramp. That's Wolverine's motorcycle, old school motorcycle from the Chris Claremont run in the 80s. I kept rewinding that scene, like just like trying to pinpoint as many Easter eggs I could find. From Jean Grey's suit to the onesie Cyclops suit. There was before the animated series X-Men, there was a Marvel was trying to do a run called The Pride of the X-Men. That debuted in 1980. Like it was a pilot, but like the pilot was so bad, it didn't even get a run. But I think if you go to YouTube, or if you go to well, I would say Blockbuster, but I mean I don't know where you can find that. It's like literally one episode, but it was so poorly written. it didn't get a contract to have a full season. But everything from the Pride of the X-Men from that 87 1987 cartoon, those suits are exact replica from that one episode cartoon. So it just took me back to my childhood, man. I just like reading the comic books, watching that one episode, and like just kind of like just living in awe, man. Like it was really cool by the writers to like don those old retro suits.
Yeah. Marcy, thoughts on the classic costumes?
I love anything retro, so it was fun to see. And then also kind of even though I didn't watch the original cartoon when it came out or read the comics, that's just part of like the X-Men like knowledge, I guess, like that you just kind of absorb by being a kid and then growing up in the US in that time period. So it was just kind of like it felt familiar again, even though like I didn't watch the shows or read the comics. So interesting how that happens.
You know what? We all love a good suiting up moment. You know, like it's just kind of cool, especially these superhero movies or animated shows or TV shows, whatever. That's always cool. My favorite part of the classic costumes and the whole suiting up is we have the father son moment where Cyclops gives Cable the blue and yellow to wear, and Cable's like, he's like, "Am I going to war or a circus?" And Cyclops looks at him and says, "What do you expect? Black leather?" That is a shot at the X-Men movie from 2000 because in that movie, they're all wearing black leather because Bryan Singer thought, well, the actual costumes don't look cool. We need to be dark. We need to be like Batman. Everyone needs to be like Batman. Everyone's dark
Batman.
and so they all wore black leather. And so in the movie, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine goes, "Black leather, really?" And then Cyclops goes, "Were you expecting yellow spandex?" So like I love how they flipped it and took a shot back at the movie. That's so great. Like that's like next level. Like that's 3D chess, honestly, to do that in this series to call out the movie. I just love that stuff. I think that's great.
And I
Uh,
recently rewatched the movies from the early 2000s, and the
yeah,
black leather now looks so dated and
right.
just corny now. Like, I'm sure back
Exactly.
then we thought it was like, oh, so sleek. But now I was watching it and I was like, they look like really corny.
No, you're exactly right. It's like these characters should wear their costumes that people love. I mean, imagine if Spider-Man was just like a wore black all the time, or like wore
He did.
well, I mean, he has a cool black costume. Yes, he does. But like the classic, like the colors and the costumes, like that's part of the characters. Like, and like Martha just said, like if you try to fit in with what's going on in the time, you're not gonna stand the test of time. You're gonna date yourself right then. Those movies, while I like those movies, they're pretty good movies. Like they don't look like the X-Men. Like, and some of the characters don't even feel like the X-Men characters. So anyway, rant over, but I really enjoyed that part of this episode. Another part I really liked was once again Morph, you know, choosing to morph into another character. This time he morphed into Hulk and he did the morph smash, which I love that. Later on, he morphs into Sinister. He's trying to trick Bastion. So I
Mm.
like how Morph is like, kind of gets his stuff in, which is obviously changing into different characters. But I thought that was a cool addition. And
And for those who
trans
don't know,
go for
real
it.
quick, for those who
Yeah.
don't know, I know somebody asked me on my personal Instagram about Morph, and they asked, and it was a good question. The guy asked me, so when Morph morphs into to some of these, mutants, does he have that same level of power? And the answer is no. He has just a fraction of the power. So when you see that scene of him just smashing the Sentinels, that's just a teeny weeny fraction of what the Hulk can do.
Right.
Because he can't mimic the full out powers because he doesn't have the genealogy, the mutant X gene or genealogy to do that.
Mhm.
But when he does use those powers of other mutants, it's just a fraction of what those mutants powers are. So
Yeah, it's just like a burst of those powers, and then it fades pretty quickly. That's why he changes to different characters constantly.
exactly. Yeah.
Still very cool. I enjoyed seeing the Hulk. Well, I think we saw the Hulk earlier this season, though, briefly, didn't we? No, the Hulk was referenced. That's right. Thunderbolt Ross referenced the Hulk. So, if you think about it, we've seen Captain America, we've seen the Hulk, we've seen Spider Man. Could be the Avengers. Never know. Maybe season 2 we get the Avengers. I would love that.
You
To
might
see
If
the
you might
Avengers.
get
we get
you
if
might get
we get
Avengers.
Iron Man.
You might get Avengers versus X-Men because in the comic books, the Avengers
Yeah,
got pissed off at the X-Men
yeah,
for a lot of the destruction that was going on. The X-Men intervening, trying to save humanity. The event, Captain America, got really pissed off because they kept towing and pretty much disobeying what the government was trying to tell them. So I don't. I wish we do. I hope we do get an X-Men versus Avengers somewhere in this series. I don't know if they will. Only for the simple fact that I don't know they want to take the attention away from the X-Men
Yeah.
and share with the Avengers, but it will be a dope ass because that was also a comic book storyline as well. So
Yeah. I think we're either going to get that in season 2 or we'll get it in the MCU. But I do think we'll have Avengers versus X-Men. It'll probably be the OG Avengers versus the OG X-Men that are going to be really introduced or really further explored in Deadpool and Wolverine. But we will talk about that at a later date. Let's talk about Mr. Sinister and Jean. This was this was a very, very, once again, Mr. Sinister, the cook, just cooking up some stuff. Marcy, I'm gonna get your thoughts on just Sinister's interaction with Jean. The fact that he starts it out with, "I know you're Jean's Jean." You think Mr. Sinister's opening up like at a comedy club? Think he's got like 5 good minutes to stand up? Like, will he be roasting Tom Brady next year? Like, I'm just not sure.
That would be great to see, honestly. No, he is just a bastard who's just loving playing the mind games with her, which I thought was so sinister. If we're just going to use him, call him by his name, because he's taunting her. He's like, do you want to know when I switched you, when you stopped being Madeline and started being Jean? Like, and then you don't know, like, is she going to give in? Because that can be something that could be very enticing and like really pull her to be like, okay, yes, I know we've got to fight you and there are other pressing things at hand, but also you could tell me when the switch happened, and would that make things better for me? Because obviously it's taken a toll on her mentally. It's got to take a toll on Nathan mentally. Not Nathan, but Scott. Well, also Nathan, because he's also just super fucked up. So he's just a bastard and just playing mind games with her. And I would understand if she was conflicted and wasn't just immediately like, no, like, I don't need to know. I need to like save humanity and the X-Men. So I hate that son of a bitch.
I want to jump in here real quick, Justin, because I know Frank's got to bounce in a few. Frank, I wanted to ask you real fast on the subject of Jean and when Sinister seems to take control of Cable, and we see like this kind of battle, if you will, of the minds or telekinesis sort of power. Has Cable always had these sorts of powers even in the comics? Because he did say, my mother was like a world-class telekinetic, and basically saying so am I, and unleashes his power on Jean, and she seems to be faltering. So tell us if you know anything about Cable and his abilities.
yeah, Cable is. I mean, he's a world-class telekinetic. He's not on the same level as Jean because Jean's the whole reason why Sinister try to clone Jean is that he wanted the Phoenix Force as well for himself. But when he cloned Jean and created Madeline, Madeline didn't adopt the Phoenix Force, so he donned Madeline as a failure. That's the tiebreaker between Madeline and Jean. Like it's like Jean's here, Madeline's here. Madeline's still powerful as fuck. And now as you pass on the genes, no pun intended, to Cable, Cable has the telekinesis and telepathic powers on the same level as Madeline. He doesn't, which and like this is why I love this episode so much because this is the first time in any cartoon incarnation that we see Cable's telekinesis going full effect. We didn't see it in the OG series. We didn't see it in X-Men Evolution or any other form of X-Men cartoons. So seeing that made me so excited. But there was a line that Sinister said to Jean, "You brought me what I needed," and what he was talking about was Cable, because Madeline's gone. Madeline's dead now, so he can't experiment on Madeline anymore. But with Cable, there's a comic book line too. Like Cable's cloned as well, and that clone's name is Strife. I don't think we might see that. I don't know, but he's pretty much a Cable clone. He's weaker than Cable, but he has a lot of the same powers as well. But no, Cable's not to be fucked with. Like he's one of the more powerful. He's an omega level mutant. On a mega level scale. Like he's that dude.
Damn. All right then. Yeah, I just had to ask that question before you headed out, because I was taken aback by that ability, and like I said, it seemed like he was just about to best Jean because she uses her powers to communicate with Scott to let him see what was happening, and for her to maybe utter her last words to him, which were "I love you." So that was like very surprising to me.
I want to talk about that too, real quick. So it's led to believe that she might die. Jean Grey might die.
Hmm.
There's a way that she can. There's a way that she can survive this. For one,
Hmm.
the whole Phoenix saga that happened in the OG series, she still has the Phoenix Force within her.
Hmm.
It comes out in different forms. It comes out when she's under stress. It comes out when, like, it's kind of like the Bruce Banner Hulk persona, when high levels of
Oh,
stress, high levels of just fear or frustration or anger. That's when that Phoenix Force comes out. So it could come out
okay.
in this incarnation. And to go back to Wolverine a little bit as well, Wolverine is more powerful and more dangerous without the antimantium. And I'm gonna tell you why.
Oh.
Because with the antimantium, especially towards Magneto, he's a threat because Magneto can manipulate metal and
Oh
and
yeah,
and all that.
good
He
point.
doesn't have that anymore. Like that metal's out. And two, he's more agile without it because he's lighter. I know, Brittany,
Whee!
you made a joke about it earlier, but that's true as well. And then three, the
He's gonna
antimantium,
launch.
exactly. And three, with the antimantium, it was poisoning his body,
Mhm.
as well, so it was affecting his healing factor. That's out of his
Mm.
body now, and his healing factor is gonna go in overdrive now. So in the comic books, when his heart stopped momentarily, like, and Jean Grey had to keep him alive by supercharging his heart, and before they were able to get him to their medical facilities at the X Mansion. But he's more dangerous now, so, and more powerful now without it. So yeah,
So not a great move by Magneto. Like
not at
really,
all. Well, in Mag's mind, he's trying to kill him, but
yeah.
once his healing factor kicks in the overdrive and keeps him alive, he's pretty much 10 times more durable without it now.
Mhm.
So in the death of Wolverine comics that came out 5-6 years ago, when he died, it was 200. It was pretty much the last 80 years of, like, the antimantium pretty much counting on his healing factor, and the poison from the metal finally sinking into his bloodstream, and his healing factor just finally just weakened over time. So yeah, so he's a motherfucker not to fuck with, with no metal in
No,
his body. So
no doubt. Hey Frank, last thing I want to ask you about before you get out of here.
yeah,
Um, Cyclops stopping Xavier from potentially taking out Magneto. Um, does this what does this show? Is this is Scott gonna maybe join Magneto? Is Scott trying to keep the professor from doing something he'll regret? What do you think is happening in that moment?
the reason why Scott did that was because if if Charles takes over McNeil's body and heals the world again, all the machines are back online for the most part for Bastion to manipulate. Because at this time, Scott's trying to give the Go Team time to stop Bastion and nullify his kinesis over machines. If Xavier supercharges the world again, Bastion is even more powerful because he has every machine to his tutelage that's live and online. Magneto pretty much put everything offline when he weakened the electric magnetic pull of the Earth.
Mhm.
And more on that with the electromagnetic pull, with it being weakened. They didn't really explain it well on the show, but pretty much what's going on. The Earth's mantle, the core, it's all that's protected by ozone protector, electromagnetic pull that keeps the Earth protected from harmful rays, especially from the sun and other afflictions from outer space. Now that it's weakened, pretty much humans gonna cook. Mutants gonna cook. uh, with the lack of with the sun rays now being a ultimate threat now with the Earth being so weak. So that's why I don't really understand, because, like, even the comic books, like, not all mutants are pervious or immune to the ozone layer. So like you're killing your own kind too in retrospect as well. So I didn't get that part too. I know a lot of it is frustration and anger, but that didn't make sense as well because you're killing off millions of mutants as well, along with humans. So
Well, thanks for informing us because I was kind of confused about all that, to be honest.
yeah, I think once he saw Jean fall, he in his mind he's like, okay, I still have Morph, I still have Forge, and I still have Beast trying to take on Bastion and put that collar around Bastion's neck to nullify his powers. He was trying to give them more time because because if if Xavier does what he does, Bastion is back to full strength again. So
Yeah.
it made sense.
Yeah, and we didn't see Bastion really much at all in the end, right? Like, do we see him again?
Bastion,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we will. Yeah, I think we will. He's because Bastion is still Nimrod and Massimo are still remnants of the future as well. So there might be a Sebastian in the present day, but the problem what Cable mentioned a couple episodes ago in the Gambit episode 5, is that there's a rip in time where certain things can't be stopped or changed. So you might be able to alter something, but this future that's supposed to happen that Cable lives in still happens. It just happens in a different fabric or different multiverse now. So yeah.
Glad you're here to explain stuff. I appreciate it.
No worries, man. Y'all
Yeah.
be good.
Have a good night, Frank. Appreciate it.
Appreciate y'all.
So, Marcy, now we're kind of wrapping up the episode. Was there anything that we didn't mention that you want to touch on?
No, I think we talked about everything. I like how Roberto was just kind of like finally, I guess, pushed to be like, okay, I should embrace my mutant powers because if even my family and my mom aren't going to protect me, like I definitely should. So I like that. And something that I thought was funny in this episode was when Storm and Forge come back and they're meeting up with the X-Men, and Beast is like, oh, like how come like you were impervious to like Magneto's electromagnetic like shutdown or whatever. He's like, oh, like I built this and I forgot what he called it, but something that to keep his like leg thing from like
Right.
breaking down. And he's like, how'd you do that? He's like, thought about it. I was like, oh, I love that. So yeah, I loved how they interspersed some bits of comedy into an otherwise very, very heavy episode.
Yeah. And Brittany, Marcy just kind of touched on it, but let's talk about Jubilee versus Roberto, which we didn't see a ton of mutant on mutant violence in this episode, but they did, trade some blows.
They did. And I feel obviously because there's like a little spark between the two of them, no pun intended. There's obviously tension because Roberto chose Magneto over staying with Xavier, but Frank made some compelling points. The fact that Roberto has never met Charles Xavier and has no loyalty to him whatsoever, he's only basing his actions on what has happened between him and his mother. His mother handed him over to the Sentinels, and that was that. But the blasts between him and Jubilee, and really more so Jubilee, I mean, she's wailing on him, right? She is not like letting up or what have you. And he's like, I'm sorry. I said I was sorry. I'm like, yep, that's right. Take it, bitch. Take it. But I was like, oh, this is not gonna end well. Like, this is just not gonna end well for either one of them. And from what Frank has shared with us about Sunspot, he's very powerful, like incredibly powerful. Love that he's got like his own suit at this point, because where did that come from, right? But yeah, I think it's very appropriate that we did see some mutant on mutant action between these two young lovers, if you will. I'm going to say they're young lovers. That's right, Christian. Don't piss me off. Don't piss me off. You're going to get the wrath of all 4'10.5" of me. Yeah, that's right.
And one thing we kind of we mentioned it earlier, but we didn't really full on talk about it was Magneto finally getting to tell Xavier the 2 words he's always wanted to say, which was "shut up," which I thought that was great. Like how he was like, like you say all kinds of stuff, and I just want to say this to you,
Stop
old friend.
walking. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had to bring that back. That absolutely killed me when,
Yeah.
when Frank set it up that way. Anyway.
Take several seats, Charles. Literally.
Yeah,
So
seriously.
let's go prediction time. The finale, as we're recording this right now on a Tuesday, the finale will air tomorrow. I will be watching it bright and early in the morning, as I always do to avoid spoilers. Marcy, starting with you, what do you predict for the finale? I mean, obviously, we're getting a season 2. We're probably getting a season 3. Probably getting a season 4 or 5, possibly. But do you have a prediction for how this season is going to end?
I don't think so. I think it's just going to be just more chaos, which I'm down for. I definitely think we'll see Wolverine again. I don't think this is the end of Wolverine. Definitely want some kind of a showdown between Magneto and Charles, whatever that looks like again, because again, Charles is in a wheelchair, but maybe they can fashion that little suit that he had in outer space so he can fight Magneto. That would be interesting. But yeah, I would love to see more Roberto and Jubilee, just see that flourish. Definitely want to see what Rogue does next. And then, of course, Storm and what's happened with Jean and how is Scott going to react to that? Because it happened at the hands of Nathan, although he was being controlled by Sinister. How does he grapple with all of that? That's got to be really, really confusing.
Brittany, same question for you. What are your predictions for the finale?
I think because there was made mention about Bishop in this episode, I don't think that was by mistake. That was setting up for maybe his grand return. And Christian, beat me to the punch here in the chat. A timeline reset. Now, timeline reset entirely, I'm not entirely sure. It'd be great, obviously, if we got back those that we lost, right? To have some sense of like feel good, closure kind of thing. But then again, this is X-Men. This feels darker, of course, than what it was back in the 90s, right? So I don't think we're gonna have like a happy ending for everyone. If we got back Gambit, that'd be great. I think that would heal a lot of wounds, of course, particularly Rogue. But I think we'll see a return of Bishop. I do very much agree that we're going to have chaos ensue. If we get hints of Jean invoking the Phoenix at whatever capacity, I think that'd be just awesome to see, because it's a great callback to the OG series, of course. We don't know what's happened with Forge at this point. We saw that the plane was heading towards some mountains. We don't know if he survives or not. We don't know how Storm is going to deal with that whole scenario. Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns at this point. And obviously they need to be able to wrap up everything in a nice bow to some degree, or give us a hell of a cliffhanger to make us just like salivate for season 2. We know we're getting a season 2. I don't remember at this moment if season 2 incorporates Bo DeMaio or not, but I think in terms of the direction, the story that's been laid out thus far, I think we're going to get some like really good stuff for seasons 2 and hopefully season 3, if that is either greenlit or about to be greenlit. But yeah, I agree with Christian. Justice for Gambit, we got to have it. We got to have it. And maybe with the timeline reset of sorts, maybe Magneto will kind of calm down and just, kind of take it back a bit. Maybe we'll get the return of Leech, because he did make a reference towards Leech to Charles, saying like, you didn't promise a young boy that everything was going to be okay, and then watch his eyes like vaporize in front of you, basically. I mean, that was, I'm misquoting that whole line, but it was a hell of a line that Magneto gave to Charles. So I'm hoping that we're going to get just like a wow factor. And Bo DeMaio did say on Twitter after the mid-season finale, as I like to call it, episodes 8 through 10 were bangers, and I think we're definitely going to see why it all come together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big ending. I do think it will be a cliffhanger of sorts. It'll be interesting to see, will we get to see Apocalypse, because there were little nods and teases to Apocalypse, like in the opening credits, like throughout the season, and we still have not seen that character. Now, that character was very prominent in the OG series, so I could understand if it doesn't happen maybe in this finale. But I want to. This is not my prediction, but there's a theory online that there's some people who believe that the Wolverine that we're going to see in Deadpool and Wolverine is the same Wolverine from this animated universe. Because if you watch the trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine, you see Wolverine. Deadpool is sent to find a Wolverine who basically lost everything, like lost all the other X-Men, maybe lost his adamantium or whatever. And there's a thought that, what if that's how they're going to tie, like they're going to transition from this awesome show to the movie, where you're going to see, because Hugh Jackman, granted, he played Wolverine in very, very many movies before Deadpool and Wolverine, but this is going to be a different Wolverine because, spoiler alert, but in Logan, his Wolverine dies, right? So, and they said that, he wasn't going to play the same Wolverine. So this is a different Wolverine. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I don't believe that's going to be the case, because I feel like there's too many moving parts to have an animated series with a movie that the animated series really isn't a part of the MCU. I mean, obviously it could
Yeah.
be, because the multiverse and anything's possible with the multiverse. But I think that is an interesting theory that I think, it's a fun thing to talk about. But I'm really interested to see how they resolve the Bastion issue, and how the X-Men, how they make it through the season. And also I'm interested to see how, next season, because they're going to have to spread out, right? They can't all just be together the whole time. Because Marcy, you mentioned before, the whole love triangle with Wolverine and Scott and Jean, like, I feel like there's more to that story. Obviously it's something that played out over the OG series also, but there's more threads to kind of spin, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I don't really believe in that theory. I think it's a big stretch if they
Yeah.
attempt to try to bridge the animated series into making that Logan into the Wolverine that will I just totally switched names. Sorry. That Wolverine in the animation to the Wolverine that we'll see in Deadpool. It's a huge stretch. I don't think that'll be. I do believe, of course, it is a Wolverine from a timeline that got pulled into it, because obviously that's why the TVA is involved in Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't see it being this one, because the way that it was framed was he saved his universe but lost everything. So unless that's just how it's going to go for the rest of this series, like, that's pretty bleak. And I really hope that doesn't happen. So yeah, that is not a theory I entirely support, but it'd be interesting if they could make it convincing, but
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Okay. So Marcy, any final thoughts before we wrap it up today?
No, I'm excited. If I'm up again at 3 a.m. when this drops, I will be watching it.
Y'all people staying up all late. Oh my goodness. I can't do that.
I will wake up early. I will watch it like it's
Can't do that either.
6:30 in the morning. Yeah, I'll watch it at that time. But I know it's Marcy, both of you and Brittany have the same shirt on. So y'all both got the X-Men 97 shirt. So you can check that out.
Sure did.
At your local Target. I believe that's where y'all got those. So
shout out to Marcy for putting that in the group chat, because as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I got to go to my local Target to go pick it up. John was the one who found it on the shelf. So yeah, shout out to both of y'all for that, because I was being a fake fan. If you know, you know. Christian, I know you know what I'm talking about, because I had no X-Men merch and now I do. So yeah, like King B Johnson here in the chat says, the X-Men 97 sisters. Yes, we are. So
love that. Now, and if you check this shirt out at Target, you'll notice that Magneto is front and center.
Yeah.
There's no Charles, and there's
God
no
damn it.
Yeah, there's Gambit, but there's no Scott. So that is very interesting. So would love to hear everybody's thoughts maybe next week in the chat about why they decided to leave some people out and why they decided to incorporate others.
Yeah, no
I'm
Scott
definitely interested because Bishop is in it.
and no
Bishop has a
Rogue.
really- yeah, no Rogue either. So that's super interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Also, no
Well-
Jubilee. No Jubilee.
No. Well, cool shirts nonetheless. We're not
Justin,
sponsored, but
you should go get one. I know Frank he's got to go get one because he's the ultimate fan here. We need to make it happen. We need to be our own Watchers, quartet of X-Men.
yeah. Well, this has been a great show to talk about. Looking forward to the finale, and yeah, can't wait for the next episode, which is coming very, very soon. So now you know what we thought about X-Men 97 episode 9. We want to hear what you think. And Brittany, how can they tell us what they think?
Very much like what King B. Johnson and Christian of McDorks have done. They've joined us here in the live chat, and we encourage everyone always to join us in the live chats when we have our live streams going on. We've got a lot of content coming your way. June is going to be extremely busy, y'all, for us. We're trying to cover as much as we can. So we would love to have y'all join us here in the live chats. And the way to do that is to simply subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we go live. And if you like X-Men 97, you like our reviews on the show, be sure to like this video. It helps out our channel immensely. But also follow us on social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Watchers Basement. You can use the same hashtag Watchers Basement to help grow our audience. And lastly, y'all, we have audio podcasts available to you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating, and also don't forget to follow us over there.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. So for Brittany and for Marcy, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.